So once again, we're not laning the same parsha. We're going to be laning over here. Korach, you're going to be laning in Shelach. And I started getting uncomfortable with making a chibur between our parsha and the parsha in Chutz. It started to feel kind of artificial. But then I chapped that these two parshas, Shelach and Korach, are actually very, very connected. And it's something that plays out daily, actually 3 times a day, halachically. And how's that? Because you know that the shiur of Farhesia, that the halacha is that even a mitzvah kala, yehoreg va'al yavor, if I'm being forced to be over in Avera b'Farhesia, the Gemara says in Sanhedrin Daf Ayin Dalid, the Kamo Farhesia, what's considered public? Amar Reb Yaakov, Amar Reb Yochanan, Ein Farhesia pchusa me'asara b'nei Adam. You need 10 people, that's considered Farhesia. Continues the Gemara, Pshita Yisraelim b'hina. It's pashut that we need Yisraelim. Because it says in Parshas Emor, V'nikdashti b'soich b'nei Yisrael. So Kiddush Hashem is b'soich b'nei Yisrael. Boy Reb Yirmiyah, Tisha Yisraelim v'nochri echad mahu. V'shema, Netani Rav Yana, Yachud Reb Chia bar Abba, Asya toich toich. You need to have 10 Yisraelim, only that constitutes a tzibur. That constitutes a farhesia for the halacha of Kiddush Hashem. We learn it toich toich. Siv hoche, it says in Parshas Emor, v'nikdashti b'soich b'nei Yisrael. Uksiv hasam, and it says by Korach, v'adosoi, he bodlu mitoich ha'edah hazois. So we have a gzeres shavet, toich toich. And we make another gzeres shavet, because it says he bodlu mitoich ha'edah, v'asya edah edah. The Ksiv Hasam by the Miraglim, it says ad Mosai la Edah hara hazois. So mala halon asara, just like by the Miraglim, we're talking about asara because the Edah hara excludes Yoshua and Kolev, so we're left with 10. The Kulu Yisrael, and they're all Yidden. Afkan asara v'Kulu Yisrael. So we learn the Toich of Enigdashti b'Soich b'nei Yisrael from the Toich of Hibodlu mitoich ha'Edah that says by Korach. And then we learn Edah from Korach's Edah from the Miraglim. So we know that V'nigdashti b'soich b'nei Yisrael requires 10 b'nei Yisrael. So this Yalfusa of Toich Toich and Edah Me'edah, that's what defines what's a Farhesia for Kiddush Hashem for the Kiyum of V'nigdashti b'soich b'nei Yisrael. The same Yalfusa, the Gemara brings in Brachas Daf Chaf Aleph, Le'inyan Amiras Dover Shebekdusha, Le'inyan Amiras Kedusha. You only say Kedusha when there's 10 Yidden. In Megillah, Daf Chav Gimel, on the mission of Ein Person Al Shema, which means the Baruch Hu, the Ein Oivrim Lefnei Ateva, etc., B'Pachis Me'asara. We learn the same drasha the Gemara says, Toich Toich and Edah from Edah. So it's kind of interesting that the Edah Hara Hazois of the Miraglim serves as the source for what constitutes a farhesia and a tzibur for Kiddush Hashem and for Amiras Davar Shebekdusha. It all comes from the Edah Hara. Truth is that the Rabbeinu Bachya in Parshas Emor on the pasuk V'nigdashti b'soich b'nei Yisrael zokte v'zeh aloshin v'oid hoichichu min hakosuf hazeh shekol davar shebekdusha tzorich asara v'hu she'amru bebrachis ein davar shebekdusha b'pachis me'asara shenema v'nikdashti b'soich b'nei Yisrael uksiv hasam ibadlu mitoich ha'edah malahalon asara avkan asara. But now he says upirish Rabbeinu Yankiv. Not sure who that is. She'ein nusche zu midukdekes. She'ein lahavi raya min hamiraglim l'davar shebekdusha. The Rabbeinu Yankiv Taka was uncomfortable that the source for Davar Shebekdusha should be from the Miraglim. Aval ikah nusche hikach. The proper girsa in the Gemara is as follows: Asya toich toich. Ksiv hoche v'nikdashti b'soich b'nei Yisrael. Uksiv hosom. It says in Parshas Miketz, Vayovoyu b'nei Yisrael lishbor b'toich haboim. They came to get food in Mitzrayim, and they somehow blended in b'toich haboim. They didn't want to be noticed. So it says that the Bnei Yisrael came lishbor b'toich. So the pasuk has a b'toich. Mala halon asara, afkan asara. Just like the Bnei Yankiv that came into Mitzrayim were 10. So also, v'nigdashti b'soich Bnei Yisrael is 10. V'achshov, yovi rayim yasora ache Yosef, shahayu tzadikim, l'dova shebikdusha. Oh, now he feels much better because we're not bringing a raya from the Edah Haro Azois of the Miraglim. We're bringing a raya from the Bnei Yankiv, shahayu tzadikim, and that's it's more appropriate that should be the source for Dova Shebikdusha. Yeah, Lemaisa. So you see that the Rabbeinu Bachya and the Rabbi Yankiv, they felt that it's more mistaber that the liquid should be from the Bnei Yankiv Shahayu Tzadikim. This nusach that the Rabbeinu Yankiv is Goris actually appears in the Yerushalmi in Brachas Perek Zayin Halacha Gimel. That the limud is from the Bnei Yankiv that came lishbor b'soich haboim. You know, I want to be moisef that the Yerushalmi in Soite Perek Zayin, Halacha Hey, there's an opinion that there were 24 Miraglim, 24. In other words, it was 12 and another 12. Ish echad. The Yerushalmi Darshans ish echad lamata means that there were 2 for every shevet. And Tosfos brings this Yerushalmi in Soited of Lamedalad Amid Beis. And Reb Kiva Eger in the Gilyon Hashas, says that Lefizeh, how do we learn from the Miraglim that the Shiur Edah is 10? There were actually 24 Miraglim, and even if we discount Yeshua and Korach, we should need 22 for a minyan. Imagine how hard it would be to get a minyan if we would follow this. So Reb Kiva Eger is bleib shver on the Yerushalmi. I want to say that maybe the Yerushalmi is l'shitosai. The Yerushalmi in Brachas that learns the Shiur of Edah, not from the Miraglim, but from the Bnei Yosef, from the Bnei Yankiv that came to Mitzrayim, Lishbar, Oichel, B'toich Haboim, is l'shitosai that holds that there were 24 Miraglim. And Itaka doesn't learn from there. Itaka learns it from the Bnei Yosef, from the Bnei Yankiv. But the fact is that our Gemara, in our Girsa, in our Gemara, in several places, the limud is from the Miraglim and from Adas Korach. So you know that Reb Moshe Feinstein has a tshuva in Orach Chaim Chelek Aleph Simchav Gimel, where he says that you could be mitzaref, an atheist, a koifer, to a minyan asara for Dova Shebikdusha, because he says that we learn the minyan, we learn from the din of asara of a kulu Yisraelim, we learn from the Miraglim. No, about the Miraglim, the Gemara says in Saita that when they said ki chazak hu mimenu, they were referring Kaviyachol to the Rebbeinu Shalom, Kaviyachol ein bal hakelim yochel lahoitzi kelav mishom, that the Rebbeinu Shalom isn't strong enough, Kaviyachol, to overcome the Yoshvei Eretz Canaan. So they were koifrim. No, and we learn from them. We learn from them the Edah. So you see that you could be mitzaref koifrim laminyan. So my father has a tshuva about this in the Lev Avrom Siman Yudches. He tines that this is he tines many tines about this. One is that we say that a Mechalel Shabbos is Kenochri only midrabanon. The Chassam Sofer says in a tshuva in Yeridei Siman Kufchof. The Miraglim and Even HaEzer in Kufnon Zayin says that even a Mumala Avodah Zorah, Midoi Raisa, he's a Yisrael. He's a Yisrael Gomer. And it's only a Knas Derabonon that we give him a din of a Goy. And Mamela, it can very well be that the Miraglim were Take Koifrim, and they're considered an A, but nevertheless they're considered an Edah Midoraisa. But it could still be that Midrabanon to be Mitzareh for a million Asora for Amiras Dava Shebikdosha, it's they're not Mitzareh, because Midrabanon, they don't have it in the Yid. And he shows that it's Mefurish in the Pri Megadim, and he actually brings the Chuvas Harambam that says Mefurish that you can't be Mitzaref, Koifrim, Laminian. He's also Marich that we shouldn't be learning from Chete HaKadmoinim. He brings sources that we're not in the position to fully comprehend the Chatoim of the biblical characters. I mean, that we should be able to define them as Koifrim. It's also true that the Yerushalmi says in the second parak in Peah, and the Rav Hai Gaon has a whole tshuva about this, that you can't learn a halacha from Divrei Agoda. He says that Divrei Agoda, we're not always sure what they really mean to say, and Memele you can't learn halacha me Agoda, and this is like a classic example of learning halacha me Agoda, because we have a Gemara that says about the Miraglim that afilu eibal akelim yochel hoitzi kelim misham kichozik umimenu, so we should learn that you could be mitzaref koifrim laminyan. About the Miraglim, it's interesting that Lamaisa, in Shulchan Aruch and Siman Tov Kuf Pei, we have a list of tiny yois that special people fast. One of them is the 17th day of Elul, because that's the day that the Miraglim died. No, so obviously it's a little bit more complex than it would seem at first hand. I mean, we kind of mourn the death of the Miraglim. As an aside, in the Likutei Torah of the Arizal, in the beginning of Parshas Shelach, it says that the neshama of the Shvatim was nisaber in the Miraglim. It was like a Gilgul. The Miraglim were a Gilgul of the 10 Miraglim were a Gilgul of those 10 sons of Yaakov Avinu. And he says that when Yosef said to his brothers, Miraglim atem, Ramaz lohem, Shehem yiyu Miraglim es Eretz Yisrael. Lefizeh, the Bavli that learns the 10 from the Miraglim, and the Yerushalmi that learns the 10 from the Achei Yosef that came Lishbar B'toich Haboim, are really not so far apart, because they actually happen to be the same people. Those same people that, as Achei Yosef, they as Rabbeinu Bachye writes, they were tzaddikim. They were also the Miraglim. So it really, I mean, it could be that we're saying that that even though Chitzonius it looks like an Edah, but the toich is Kaddish. It's interesting to note that in the Mishnah, in Perek Chelik, it says Mefurish that the Miraglim do not have a Chelik in Olam Haba. But in the Zohar, in the Raya Mehemna, it's mashma that they do have a Chelik. They do have a Chelik. And there's a fascinating Remami Fano in a Sefer Asora Mamoros, in the Maimer Chikur Hadin, Chelik Beis, Perek Ches, and he writes this in several places. He writes that when it says about the Dor HaMidbar, the Ba'avoin Miraglim, Ein Lahem Chelik L'Olam Haba, it means She'ein Lahem Tzorech B'Olam Haba. And Azra B'Hem L'Maylo Mimadregis Olam Haba. I mean, it's really astounding. It's just to show that Divrei Agoda are really, really beyond and above our ability to understand. And he says that the Gemara says in Sanhedrin that when Rabbi Akiva said that the Miraglim don't have a chelik in Olam Haba, the Gemara says Shavkei Rabbi Akiva lechasidusei, that Rabbi Akiva was always melamed schus on Yidden, and over here he's talking about them so negatively. he said, according to his pshat, the Ein Lahem Chelik L'Olam Haba means they don't need Olam Haba. So what's negative about it? So he says the Taina was on Rabbi Akiva that he expressed his idea in a lashon that can also be understood negatively. That's the Taina of Shavkei Rabbi Akiva L'Chasidusei. But what it really means is positive. It's positive. So in the end of the day, Korach v'Adosai, they said, Ki kol ha'eda kulam kedoshim u'besoicham Hashem u'madua tisnasu. And that was wrong because there are individuals that are above the rest. There are some that are tisnasu. But nevertheless, Korach v'Adosai serve as the source for the kedusha of kol ha'eda. That when there's an Edah, not individuals. Individuals, there's madregas al gabe madregas. But as far as the Edah, as an Edah together, the pshat is that there is always a kedusha. Al kol bei asara shchinta sharia, regardless of their madrega. In other words, besides for koifrim that are yotza michlal yisro, al kol ponim midrabanan, but the any yid, regardless of his madrega, if they're 10 yidden together, they constitute an Edah. And the kol ha'edah is kulam kedoshim. Individuals have different madregas, but kol ha'edah is kulam kedoshim. Akol be'asara shchinta sharia. Kol be'asara shchinta sharia. You know, we say that and mainly you can say kedusha. I mean, you could have 9 gedola Yisrael, tzaddikim gemurim, and you can't say Edah v'Shem kedusha. And you could have 10 poshet yidden, and you could say Edah v'Shem kedusha. So that's a statement about the kedusha of the Edah. We say kedoshim tiyu. Rashi says Parshas zu nemra b'hakel, which also has the meaning that when there's a hakel, there's kedusha. The pasuk says Elokim nitzav ba'adas kel, the community. That's where there's the divine presence. Ba'adas kel, there's Elokim nitzav. V'kora zeh el zeh ve'omar kodesh. You know, when it's noislim rishus zeh la zeh, then there could be a lahaktish liyotzram. Yechidim that are on their own for themselves don't have the ability to attach to the kedusha shel maila, and it's dafke the klal. Ki makdishecha b'kedushoscha kidashto noe lekodesh pe'er mikedoshim. The noe of the pe'er is because makdishecha b'kedushoscha kidashto. The Rebbeinu Shalom was mikadosh klal Yisrael with his kedusha, and therefore they have the ability to be makdishecha. And that kedusha of b'kedushoscha kidashto is the kedusha of the kol ha'edah. And the kol ha'edah is take kulam kedoshim u'besoicham Hashem. U'besoicham Hashem. The Rambam says in Hilchos Tefillah, this is interesting. The Rambam says in Hilchos Tefillah, Perek Ches, Halacha Ches, the ein oimrim kaddish ela ba'asora v'chulei shekol asora miyisrael heim nikroim Edah shenemar ad mosai le'Edah haro azois v'hoyu asora sharei yotzu Yeshua v'kolev v'chol davar shebekdusha lo yehei ela b'toicha Edah miyisrael shenemar v'nikdashti b'seich b'nei Yisrael. So this is another version, because the Rambam was mashmit the toich toich. In other words, that we learn the betoich b'nei Yisrael from the hibadlu mitoich, like out and the Rambam l'chorah without the toich toich. How do we know that v'nikdashti b'seich b'nei Yisrael depends on an Edah miyisrael? In other words, the whole Edah comes from the Miraglim, but if you drop the Miraglim and you only learn it from Korach, so you don't have a source for 10. The Rambam doesn't have that link. The Rambam just says, "Shekol asara miyisrael nikroim Edah, shenema at mosei le'Edah ra'azois, v'hoyu asara shariyotzi Yeshuv v'kolev." I'm sorry, when the Rambam has the Miraglim, but he doesn't have Korach, so he doesn't have the Toich Toich. So how do we know that v'nikdashti is totally in an Edah? How do we know that v'nikdashti is totally in an Edah if we don't have the drasha of Toich Toich? It would seem that v'nikdashti b'soich b'nei Yisrael really means that the v'nikdashti is b'soich the entirety of b'nei Yisrael. But Chazal are telling us that an Edah Yisrael has the koyach of Klal Yisrael. And therefore we say that v'nikdashti b'soich b'nei Yisrael. What's b'nei Yisrael? B'nei Yisrael is an Edah Yisrael. Now, how do we know how much is an Edah Yisrael? An Edah Yisrael we learn from the Miraglim. But we only have a source for an Edah Yisrael, and we don't have the Toich according to the Rambam. No, the Maisa, so that's a very big mechayim for Verstetzach Allein for Tzibur, understanding the chshivas of a chibur to the Tzibur. We have Be'emes Tefillah b'Tzibur every day, but it would seem like it's a Tarti Desasri, Tefillah and Tzibur, because Tefillah is a very private thing. It's a very personal thing. Everybody has, the Iker Teuchen of Tefillah is by Koshas Tzrochim, and everybody has his own Tzrochim. Everyone has his own problems. And at the same time, we say that Tefillah should be b'Tzibur. So probably the pshat is that we should attach ourselves to the tzibur to the extent where my tzrachim and your tzrachim are all meshed together. I care about you and you care about me, and we all need to be helped together. That's the idea of tefillah b'tzibur, and then we bring about the presence of Kol Bei Asora Shchinta Sharia, because it's an Asora that's together, and that's probably why the Arizal says that it's Nochain Loimar before you start davening. It's Nochain Loimar Hareini Mekabel Olai V'Ahavta Riacha Kamoicha. Hareini Mekabel Olai V'Ahavta Riacha Kamoicha. Mitzvah Sasei V'Ahavta Riacha Kamoicha. Because it's in order that the tzibur should be a tzibur, that it should be tzavur, that they should be taka together. There has to be V'Ahavta Riacha Kamoicha. Yeah, I just say that sometimes you can have a guy, he says, and then somebody comes over and asks him something, gives directions to somewhere, and he's before davening, and he says, oh, no. He can't talk out now. Yeah, so that's probably not in other words, when you mekabel alai mitzvah seishu v'after, it really means that you should actually be willing to practice it right here and now. And that's not only not a stira with davening, but adarabah, that's one of the tnoim that you should be able to connect with others, and you should be able to daven, and your tefillah should be niskabel as a tefillah satzibur. Okay, I wish you all a guten Shabbos and a guten Chodesh. Yeah.